Now, you've all seen a million, probably, different videos on this whiskey. I'm going to give you some factual breakdown about what is in this, maybe some historical context too, if I can remember it. But essentially today I want to tell you a story. And this story starts with, I just love a screw cap sometimes. Now, I don't even remember what year it was, but the first time I ever tried this whiskey was at my eldest sister's wedding. What? 18, 19 at the time. And it was the most expensive whiskey in this hotel's bar. And I didn't know anything about whiskey pricing, and you know, this is a long time ago. And I just thought to myself, why is it the most expensive? I'll order a glass of it. I used to get paid cash in hand in a little brown packet at the end of every Friday when I used to work in bars. So I had that with me because the wedding was on a weekend. And I ordered a single of it, and it came to about £5. And I was walking around drinking this and chatting with everyone and dancing, and every time I came back to it I was like, why is it sweet and spicy and smoky, and how is it doing that? What is Black Label? Now, for those of you that may have never seen this whiskey before, this is going to be quite interesting. Johnnie Walker Black Label, along with Johnnie Walker Red Label, are arguably the two best-selling big brand Scotch blended whiskies in the world. There are a couple of other whiskies that do outsell them, that are sold directly to the Indian market and sold within India, but Johnnie Walker is certainly the biggest puller in terms of big brand. Why is that? Well, how Johnnie Walker started, he was a grocer, and he would put these little blends together. This is going to be a massive, massive minimalisation of history. And the first question a lot of us ask is, why is it called Black Label? Because you think about things these days that are called, you know, black something. You think about American Express black cards, and Mercedes do like black versions of their cars that are the fastest in the world, within Mercedes anyway. And there's really not any rhyme or reason to it. It was called Black Label just because he happened to just put a black label on it. I believe it used to be called like Extra Old Highland, something like that. Johnnie Walker fans will correct me below for sure, because I'm thinking about this off the top of my head. And what that came into in the modern world is a 12-year-old blended whiskey at 40% alcohol. It is coloured and it is chill filtered, like the two previous whiskies in the last 2 weeks we've spoken about, but it can do everything. Rumours are, if you look at Blue Label, and I believe on the back of the box of Blue Label they talk about 1 in every 10,000 Johnnie Walker casks goes into Blue Label. That's still quite a lot of whiskey when you think about the amount of distilleries that Johnnie Walker own, or Diageo, their parent company, own. It's a lot of whiskey. So this is all minimum 12 years old, and is a combination of both single malt whiskies and single grain whiskies. Those single grain whiskies will no doubt come from Cameron Bridge, they'll come from North British, which Diageo co-own with Edrington. I think Edrington still own North British Distillery. Or not now, because they've sold all their blended whiskey, so maybe not. But yeah, Cameron Bridge, North British, and there might be some closed stuff in this, probably not, but Diageo own the most grain distilleries in all of Scotland, even the closed ones, so like Port Dundas, Cambus, all these other ones. And then the single malt contents are literally from every single part of Scotland, with the exception of Campbelltown. Although, that doesn't mean that Diageo don't own casks of Campbelltown stocks, it just means they don't own a distillery currently in Campbelltown. But this is a combination of every single, probably, single malt they own. So everything from Talisker and Lagavulin and Kalila, both peated and unpeated, all the way through to wonderfully light, fragrant Speysides like Royal Lochnagar and Cardew. Some like kind of fruity, spicy, funky lowland whiskies like Glenkinchie. Brand new distilleries like Rose Isle. There's probably some of this in these new batches because that just passed the 12-year point a couple of years ago. And you know, what else do they own that's kind of got some funky, weird stuff in it? Most of it's up Speyside way, really. Clynelish, you know, things like that. Dalwhinnie, which is really honeyed and lovely. But I have a story attached to this bottle. It means a lot to me. It's the only bottle of whiskey that I constantly replace. So as soon as this is finished, I will go out and buy another one whenever I need to do some shopping. RRP in the UK on this is about £32 to £35. I managed to get this along with the Jamesons we reviewed a couple of weeks ago, both on quite a heavy discount in a very well-known supermarket. So I think I only paid the same price as a bottle of Johnnie Walker Red Label, which is about £22. Insane value. 12-year-old age-stated blend contains most kinds of whiskey in Scotland. And on the nose, you get that incredible aroma of, for me, what is Scottish whiskey. The only other whiskey that I think comes close to this in summarising what Scotch whiskey is all about is Benromach 15. And it just has the aroma of every little glen and village and distillery. Let's talk through it. So much like the Jameson's, up front we get the grain. It is a little bit more buttery than the Jameson's grain, and it has more of a perfumed element to it as well. Bear in mind, we don't know what the casks in this are. We can assume a majority of it is ex-bourbon, probably first, second and third fill. The grain especially, along with the single malt, but there could be some sherry stock in this, there could be some port stocks in this. We honestly have no idea. But yeah, we get this buttery, sweet perfumed grain, and then you get this kind of explosion of Speyside style. I'm getting all of those wonderful green apple notes you get from Cardew, Royal Lochnagar with its hot cross bun Easter aromas, lemon, which I always get from Cragganmore. Don't really get any of that kind of honeyed thing from Dalwhinnie. And then you start getting into some of those West Coast elements, those smokier elements, those more intense elements. But they're not as full on the nose as you might think they are. Now, I said at the start of this video this contains Talisker, Lagavulin and Caol Ila. It might not, but chances are one or more of those three distilleries will have contents in this liquid. You get that sort of spiced mackerel, like dried fish oiliness on the nose. Pushing through that, there's almost like a candle wax, spent candle wax. Then you get these nice salty aromas, which always reminds me of Talisker. For me, Talisker is one of the saltiest whiskies in all of Scottish whiskey. But let's taste it. Let's see what unlocks on the palate. The palate is where this thing really starts to come alive. The grain leads the way again. And it does come across as a little bit acetone-y. You do get those really sort of high ABV notes, very sort of stripped flavour profile. You do get that at the start, but it is kind of washed out by these nice vanilla, custard, soft, sweet dessert sort of notes. Then comes the smoke. And it's a type of smoke that reminds me of spent cigars and old ashtrays. I have quite a large family, so a majority of my younger memories as a kid are being in pubs at birthday events and christenings and, unfortunately, funerals and loads of other stuff. And that was back in the day when you could smoke inside in pubs in the UK. And you know, the aroma of cigarettes and not to my knowledge at the time, but whiskey and cigars and little cigarillos, those kind of aromas all sort of melding together. That's the type of smoke this has, which again is a quite nostalgic thing personally. It becomes quite toffee too. You know, big whiskies like Blair Athol and Ben Rinnes are really strong foundational points in a lot of Johnnie Walker whiskies. And Blair Athol and Ben Rinnes for me are always these toasty, soft, honey caramel sort of products. And you do get that on the finish, along with this sort of opening, gaping style of salt and old dying fires and all that sort of stuff. Very much a nostalgic theme to this week's episode. No need for any more chat really. I'm going to give Johnnie Walker Black Label a solid 7.5 out of 10. I love this stuff. I really, really do love it. It literally encompasses for me what the flavour of Scotch whisky is all about. Yes, it isn't cask strength. Yes, it isn't even higher strength. Yes, it's chill filtered, etc, etc. But without this, most of that couldn't happen. Which is a really important factor. And we always have to think about that when we think about all of these cool bottles we can get our hands on. It's because of stuff like this. Now, you don't have to like this product because of that. That's totally fine. But it's something I will always have in my house. But yeah, that's Johnnie Walker Black Label. That's a 7.5 out of 10. And I'll see you all next week. Cheers.